Hello and welcome to episode 4 of the World Wanderers podcast. I'm Ryan.
I'm Amanda, and we're your hosts.
And today we're going to Scotland.
What are we talking about?
Edinburgh, right?
Edinburgh?
Glasgow?
Yeah.
Yes. Loch Ness Monster, probably. What else are we talking about? We're going to talk about some general travel topics, right? Budgeting,
Hostel size,
and how that affects the hostel environment, and a whole bunch of other stuff.
Let's get started.
Yeah.
A little bit about Edinburgh, very quickly. Has a population of about 1 million people, and it's actually the royal capital of Scotland and has been since 1427. And so we arrived in Edinburgh in the afternoon. We got off the train from London, and my first impression was, wow, because the castle is just sitting there up on the hill, looking over it, sparkling in the sun. It was absolutely breathtaking.
Yeah, it's one of, I was going to say one of the most beautiful cities, but I don't think it's that. It's just that one picture of like this castle on a cliff over the park, over the like main strip. It's a very scenic spot in a city.
For sure. So we got off the train and we actually walked to our hostel. Because we did a late booking and there was a festival in Edinburgh, we actually didn't have very many choices. So we ended up getting in a pretty crappy hostel.
It was cool, but crappy.
It was. So we stayed at the Belford Hostel, which is actually built in an old church, which is a super cool idea, except that there wasn't really roofs on the room. So it was very loud and it was also very dirty.
Yeah, it's weird how they didn't put ceilings on the rooms. Yeah. Because it's in a church, it's just one big space. So they're like, oh, we'll save money, we'll just build a bunch of walls.
And it was so echoey, so loud, really hard to sleep there. But it was also outside of the main area where we would suggest staying. Yeah. It took us about an hour and a half to walk from the train station.
I think it was about an hour and a half to get up to the castle from there.
Okay, so maybe about an hour to get from the train station, 45 minutes.
That's
and we walked with our backpacks on.
That's one of the cool features. Well, no, wouldn't say a cool feature, but backpacking in Europe, you're actually doing some backpacking. We talked about it a lot while we were traveling in South America, how we are traveling with backpacks, but we could have easily been traveling with like suitcases, anything else, because we didn't walk with our backpacks at all. Because taxis are cheap and affordable, so you can take them anywhere. You don't need to walk long distances. Also, if you're walking long distances with all your stuff in South America,
it's dangerous.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's not dangerous in Scotland. It is a great way to stay fit, though. You do get that activity and you're sweating by the end of a 45-minute walk with 30 pounds on your back.
To stay fit unless you hurt your back.
Yeah, that's fair.
Because walking for that long with, like, what are we traveling with? 16, 17 kilos?
Yeah, I had a 65-liter bag. I think yours was 70.
Yeah, so that's a lot of weight to be hauling around on your back.
Yeah, and you're really, I've been told you're only supposed to have about a quarter of your body weight on your back. And so in South America, mine was closer to...
Even a quarter, that seems high. I feel like that's not the right number.
But my backpack was 40 pounds. Just throwing it out there, I do not weigh 160. That's like your body weight.
Yeah, but you definitely get a workout hauling those things around in the summer. Mm-hmm. Get a good sweat going.
And so why were you excited to be in Scotland at the time?
I was pretty excited because I do have some sort of link to Scotland. Well, more than some sort of link. My dad's from Scotland. So I had identified with being Scottish. I had put that on my list of identity items.
Mm-hmm, for sure.
It's interesting being in Canada, though, because everyone is fairly recently immigrated in terms of their family history.
Yeah.
So you still get a lot of people who really identify with whatever history their grandparents, great-grandparents have, those countries that they do come from. It's kind of weird because it doesn't have anything to do with them. Maybe their parents make a certain type of food item because of their history, but for a lot of us, they don't even do that. But people are always just looking for this way to differentiate themselves from each other, make themselves feel special because they don't have that strong sense of identity coming from inside.
For sure.
They grab onto external factors like favorite sports teams, national heritage, stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
But at the time, I was excited to be there because I was Scottish and it was Scotland. So I was like, maybe I'll fit better here.
Yeah. I think that's a fair thought to have. If you're kind of struggling with your identity, who you are, find your place in the world, your path. For sure.
Yeah. So I was excited to be there.
Yeah, definitely. So while we were in Edinburgh, I think the first thing we did the following day after we arrived was went and visited the Edinburgh Castle, which is definitely a must-see in the city.
That's the number one attraction.
Yeah. So a little bit about the Edinburgh Castle. It was reported that people were using the castle since 2 AD, or the castle space. They're not exactly sure what for. But they did use the castle in the 14th century in the Scottish Wars of Independence. But since the 1700s, it's mostly been used as a military barracks. I was mostly just excited to take photos with giant cannons, to see the view of the city, to be at a castle, because I had never done that before.
Yeah, it's cool. A lot of places you have a great viewpoint of the city. And then a lot of places you have like a cool building, but it was like the cool building at the cool viewpoint. 2 for 1. Special.
Yeah, for sure. And you can go into the dungeons. There's
the prison. Yeah, prison, dungeon, same thing.
Yeah, crown jewels.
Yeah, some military stuff. There's lots of, they have like some military tribute stuff to war veterans, like with the world wars and stuff. I remember thinking at the time that I should have looked up where my relatives had fought in the war so I could look and find them on the list, but
yeah,
I didn't.
Such a common last name that might have been tough.
Yeah,
but,
there's like 18 million Fergusons in Scotland, so
definitely. I was recently looking about the Edinburgh Castle, and it says online that it's about £16. I'm not sure what we paid at the time, but I definitely think that
to buy the castle.
To buy the castle, yes, to own it.
£16.
I'm a part owner in the castle. Edinburgh
you couldn't
Castle.
afford the whole thing.
No.
But to get in is £16.
Yeah, sorry. Entrance fee is £16 to get into the Edinburgh Castle. And although this is a little bit of money for a tourist attraction, it definitely is worth it.
Yeah, it's better than like the cathedrals you're going to spend your money on in other places.
Yeah, and from the castle, you can actually walk right onto the Royal Mile, which is sort of the main strip that kind of goes through the old town and right down into the new town.
Yeah, so it goes from up the hill to the castle at the end, or down the hill, starting from the castle, depending on which way you're looking at it.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. And we actually did a Scotch whiskey experience through the Scotch Whiskey Heritage Centre while we were there. It's on the Royal Mile. What were your thoughts on that experience?
It was kind of interesting. I'm always excited to learn about stuff. So when I think brewery tour, a Scotch tour, oh, you're going to go in, it's going to be an area where they're actually making Scotch and you're going to learn about it. But here it's like, oh, you hop in this plastic whiskey barrel thing.
More like a ride.
Yeah, no, it's a ride. It's like a water park ride, except not watery, and you're in a barrel. I'm thinking of like the log ride.
But a barrel, but no water. Yeah.
And then you go around and you see some plastic malt. What do they roast?
Malt.
Yeah. And they take you through the process while you're riding around in this robotic
it's just all
whiskey
very
barrel.
kitschy.
And then you get out and you get to taste some Scotch, which is cool. During university, I had kind of pretended to like Scotch, kind of thinking it would make me manly.
How'd that work out for you?
I don't really like Scotch that much.
I think Scotch is disgusting.
My kind of theory on it is like you can try. It's so intense that maybe once you're old and your taste buds are all dull, you can. It's like, oh, this is good. I can finally taste something again.
You've eaten one too many spicy curries and just
it's like there's nothing there, so you need something that intense. But it's, I don't know. It's not that pleasurable to drink for me.
No, it's not. And I remember receiving like a card at the experience we were doing the tasting. It said all the different types we were going to.
Scratch and sniff.
Scratch, yeah. And it's like you sniff them and it's like, ooh, vanilla, like fruity, floral.
I remember banana was one of them.
Banana. And I remember being like, okay, maybe this won't be so bad. And taste them, and it's just like, I shudder after. I'm like, this does not taste like flowers. This does not taste like fruit.
But you could taste the difference between the places. And you learn, it's cool learning about how much the water impacts it.
Yeah, no, it's definitely an interesting experience. I just don't think that Scotch is for me. I enjoyed the toffees that you kept passing me post Shutter more than I enjoyed the Scotch.
Yeah. So we almost got diabetes in Scotland simply from eating so many toffees.
Yeah, toffees. And then we also ate rock candy, which I don't like, but Ryan likes.
Yeah. If anyone doesn't know what rock candy is, it kind of looks like a sidewalk chalk stick,
Tastes
but
like
it's
it as
made
well.
out of sugar.
Yes.
Have you tasted sidewalk chalk?
I don't know, maybe. Don't judge me. I was a weird little kid.
Yeah, I grew up eating it. So when you're a kid, anything sugary is delicious. So then I kind of never really realized that it's kind of weird. But I like it. I'd eat one now if I had one.
I mean, I'd probably give it another go. I'd prefer a bag of toffees, though.
My dad used to go to a Scottish or a British candy shop in Victoria, maybe. And bring home boxes of, it's called Edinburgh Rock Candy, the brand. And Edinburgh Rock is like I think that's what they call the cliff that the
Castle's on?
Castle's on, yeah.
Yeah.
And so I'd eat like 3 of those in a sitting, which is just disgusting.
Yeah, that is gross. That's
horrible
okay,
for you. Yeah, and then shortbread was also a big thing.
Yeah, we ate quite a bit. You ate quite a bit of shortbread. I have a gluten intolerance, so I think I maybe nibbled a little.
Yeah, but there is one place in particular we went and got some good shortbread. Do you want to talk about that?
Yeah. So this was one of the highlights of being in Edinburgh for me. It's a cafe called the Elephant House, and it's actually where J.K. Rowling began writing Harry Potter. And I mean, it's a little bit kitschy now. It's got a sign on the outside that you pretty much wait in line to take a photo with. You go inside, there's Harry Potter toilet seats. I loved it though.
Did we get a photo with the sign? I think I took one of you.
I got one. You didn't want one. Oh, I don't like Harry Potter.
Way too cool to
You
pose
like
for the
Harry
touristy
Potter. I know
photos.
you
No,
do.
I really enjoy Harry Potter. It was really cool being there too. I love those toilet seats.
So cool.
We just I think I went into the washroom to go to the washroom first, and I was like, oh wow, like you gotta go take a pee.
Yeah. Yeah, but we enjoyed, you had a shortbread cookie, I had a gluten-free brownie, and we shared a vanilla latte, I think, just looking up at the castle. And you can totally tell where the inspiration for Hogwarts came, which is so cool, I think.
Yeah. Yeah, we noticed there and a couple other spots in Scotland, but you can really see how the architecture there is the architecture that you see in Harry Potter.
Yeah, for sure. It's
Hogwarts and all that.
pretty magical.
It's funny to think about how if you're a cafe owner, a lot of the times there's people who come, maybe someone comes and sits in your cafe for 8 hours during the day and they're a writer. And it's like, you've never done anything. Like, you're just wasting a table in my cafe. Like, I could see a lot of cafe owners would be kind of upset about that.
It's like maybe they spend $3 on a coffee.
Yeah, and then they're wasting a table using Wi-Fi. Maybe they have their computer plugged in, they're using the washroom. Like, they're probably not even making you money.
No.
But you look at something that happened there with J.K. Rowling, who was probably doing that there. And now it seems like 75% of the business there, when we were there, it seemed like everyone there was a tourist. There's a big line up out front. It kind of looks like the Mona Lisa with people trying to get photos.
Line up inside. Everything's pretty expensive too. I have a feeling that they put their prices up with the food and whatnot.
But that has definitely that's their golden egg now. Mm-hmm. Although it seemed like a good place, right?
Oh yeah, I love the vibe in there. The coffee was delicious. My gluten-free brownie was obviously unreal.
Yeah.
I think you enjoyed your shortbread.
Yeah, no, I really like the shortbread.
And I mean, the view of the castle is just so cool. I couldn't say it enough. It's so cool.
Yeah. And then from there, we continued on down the Royal Mile to the Parliament buildings.
Yes.
And had a second royal sighting.
Yeah. Down to the Parliament buildings and the Queen's Gallery. We actually saw Prince Charles, Camilla, and David Cameron, who was the Prime Minister at the time. Yeah.
It was weird because it was like 4 days after seeing the Queen. So it was like, is this what life is like over here? You're just seeing the royal family everywhere.
Yeah, I was just waiting to see Prince Harry. He never popped up though.
Yeah, we didn't see any princes.
No, unfortunately not. Well, Prince Charles. Not the younger princess though.
Yeah.
As well, something on the Royal Mile that was pretty cool was that we saw a lot of street performers.
Yeah.
This was sort of our introduction to street performers. They're pretty big in Europe. And people actually make a living out of them. You can go to like street performer school and they're really good.
Yeah, they were impressive. I think the most impressive one was a sword swallower we saw.
Yeah, so he actually cut something. He had somebody else from the audience come and cut something with the sword, both sides, to prove that it was sharp. Then he proceeded to stick it down his throat. It was the craziest thing I've ever seen. It's like, oh my God.
Yeah, it was a full-size sword. Like that would have been in his stomach.
Yeah. He must have some serious gag control.
Yeah.
That's really impressive.
Yeah, a lot of times other places, street performers kind of seem like a bit of a hassle. But there it's like, wow, like this is a show. Like they deserve some of my money for the entertainment they're providing.
For sure. Throw in a couple pounds there. A couple pence maybe. Yeah, that was pretty much all we did in Edinburgh. Do you have any other things you want to say?
Yeah, I think we should
Edinburgh?
say, if you are going there, I think staying near the Royal Mile is the thing to do.
For sure. And just reiterating from our last podcast that if you are backpacking Europe and the UK in the summer, just to book ahead. You know, if a good hostel is something that you value and something you want out of your trip, definitely book ahead. It's worth it for sure.
And I remember we didn't get a chance to climb up Arthur's Seat, but that seemed like a cool thing to do.
Yeah, it looks like a cool couple-hour hike with a good view of the city and the castle. I think we would definitely do that if we went back.
Yeah, and the other thing I kind of regretted there was that we didn't have a chance to go out and experience the nightlife, which I think is pretty good there.
Yeah, we just did some day pub hopping, but there's lots of cool pubs on Royal Mile.
Yeah, lots of cool pubs, lots of cool cafes. Really cool city.
Yeah. So from there we took a train up to Glasgow, which was only about an hour away. And Glasgow is actually the biggest city in Scotland with 2 million people, including the metropolitan area and the surrounding suburbs. And it's known as the City of Culture. How interesting. What were your thoughts on Glasgow?
It was interesting going from Edinburgh. I feel like I'm mispronouncing the name.
Edinburgh.
Yeah, it's not Edinburgh. And it was like pretty, and we had good weather cruising to Glasgow, and it's kind of like a grittier town.
Yeah.
And it rained the entire time we were there.
It was gloomy, rainy.
Yeah, which I think is a general problem with Scotland in general, is just raining all the time. But yeah, definitely a gloomier town. And I think we stayed in a big hostel called Euro Hostel.
Yes, it was 9 stories.
That was kind of in like a
industrial area.
Yeah, not too far from the train station, but it wasn't industrial, but not nice area.
I think it was right beside the bridge that crossed the river over to the industrial area. So we were just kind of on the outskirts of the industrial area. It wasn't the nicest area of town by any means.
No, yeah, it wasn't nice. There was lots of sketchy folk about. And it was our first experience with a really big hostel.
Yeah, so we had a room to ourselves with a bunk bed. And I remember us going down into the bar, and it's so big that it was really an awkward social experience. Like, we're like, do we go sit with random people? Like, what do we do? Like, the place is so huge. How do you interact with these people? Like, do they want to talk to you? A lot of social anxiety and in turn frustration with that. Yeah,
that was our first, since I had only been at that point to 3 hostels. But they'd all been smaller and a more open, friendly atmosphere. It seems like when you get in a smaller hostel, people are, you say hi to people in the hallways, maybe like talk to people at breakfast, but when you get into a hostel that big, it seems like everyone closes themselves down.
Yeah, for sure. I can't imagine being a solo traveler there, like showing up and just like so awkward, like people not talking to you. Yeah. I mean, we'd been pretty go, so it was kind of nice to have a bit of time to just like watch our TV and chill out. At the same time, it really takes away. You don't get to experience the nightlife. You don't meet anybody.
Yeah, I remember at that point in time, we were started worrying about money a little bit. Because we'd spent money on a tour. We were going to go do the Highlands of Scotland. And we had an idea of a budget in our heads, and that we weren't living up to it at all.
No, and it is tough in the UK. I just wrote a blog post about London, and it's tough in big cities that are expensive, and when your dollar's not good and there's so many things to see and do, and where do you draw the line?
But I think that's too, like, you're taking responsibility off of yourself. Like, our problems weren't that there wasn't options available. Our problems that we weren't choosing to use those options. Like, in London, we went to the M&M store in Piccadilly Circus and spent like $20.
Yeah.
And like, we kept going to pubs, and I'd buy beer, and I'd buy fish and chips, and I'd buy all this other stuff.
For sure. So Glasgow was kind of where we started learning. So one thing that we do traveling to really budget is we go to grocery stores whenever we can. So in Glasgow is really where we started going to grocery stores. We got food for breakfast, we got food for lunch, we got snacks. So we got stuff like Ryan got buns, I got rice cakes, we got some deli meat, hummus, carrots, some apples, some eggs to cook in a hostel kitchen if there's not breakfast served. It's just, the money that you spend on something like that for two people that lasts you a whole day, if not two, is what you spend on one meal. Yeah.
And it's, just for anyone who's planning a Europe hostel trip and you see, oh, this hostel has free breakfast. It's not free breakfast. It's free toast.
Yeah. And I mean, it's difficult for me.
Maybe cornflakes.
It's difficult for me because I do have a gluten intolerance, and I did feel quite a bit of frustration with this in the UK because I did have a lot of struggles eating. But for somebody who's not a picky eater and really looking to save money, fill up on toast, eat your hostel breakfast, buy your lunch, and then, treat yourself to an affordable dinner where you do get to try some of the local food. Yeah. And do that once in a city or maybe twice, and then, cook your dinners as well. Pasta, rice, it's so cheap.
Yeah, and you can get a lot of specials at lunch that you can't get at dinner. But we were trying to, eventually what we kind of came to was, okay, one meal a day is out.
Yeah.
And then the other two are in.
That's kind of been our philosophy, I think, since Glasgow, that we really try to stick to. Yeah. And that does help us cut a lot of costs.
Yeah. It's interesting because you're kind of trying to walk this balance between having fun and traveling for a long time. It's like, oh, I could spend more money today, and then that takes a day off my trip at the end, but I'm having more fun today. So you have to kind of constantly balance that out.
Yeah, it's a
you have to sacrifice today for that longer time at the end of your trip.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think everybody's different, look at how much money you have, figure out how much you can spend in a day. And for me, I like to stay in a nice hostel. Like, I don't want to pay not very much money and stay in an insecure hostel or somewhere that's gross. Like, I'll pay a little bit of money for that. I do like to try the local food. So I will, spend at least one meal a day doing that, or one meal every 2 days. Mm-hmm. But
except for places where it's really expensive.
Yeah. I mean,
we'll encounter one of those later on the podcast.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, we've had a few of those, but for the most part, you can find like pretty good, especially in the UK. We found pubs where we got some good like fish and chips deals. I think we got a good dinner deal in Glasgow where you got to try haggis, neeps, and tatties.
Yeah. Haggis is actually pretty good if you don't know what it is.
What is it? Remind me again. Some liver, stomach?
I thankfully have forgotten the ingredients again.
It's okay.
It's a bunch of organs shoved into some intestines.
I remember tasting.
So yeah, they've got like haggis, blood sausage, neeps, tatties.
Whatever those are.
I can't remember what neeps are.
Potatoes?
No, I think that's what tatties is.
Oh, I don't know.
Maybe we should have looked up what neeps and tatties are before podcasting.
We can put some information on our show notes about it.
Mm-hmm. But the other thing we were going to talk about for the big hostel is it's a similar thing where I remember being in the bar sitting there and being like, oh, we should try to like make friends. Like at the start of our trip, that was really kind of a focus of ours, putting ourselves out there and meeting new people. Mm-hmm. And it was just so cold. Like
very cold.
You really would have to be very assertive to meet people, which
neither of us were at the time.
No, definitely weren't assertive enough. Like wanted the socializing to come to us and not go to it.
Not go to it. Yeah, for sure. So while we were in Glasgow, we actually did a hop on, hop off sightseeing bus. And so these are a little bit more expensive than a public bus, but you do get a little more information about the city. There's select stops that you can do you can get off and on as many times as you want between the hours the stops come, or between the buses come to the stops. They come about every hour.
Maybe it might have been less than that.
Yeah, there's quite a few stops, and you have the ticket for 48 hours. So we actually used it for 2 days to go around Glasgow. And because it was pretty rainy, we passed by, we saw the art gallery, museum, Glasgow School of Art, many theaters, George Square, City Chambers, and the Gallery of Modern Art, as well as the Kelvin Grove Museum. So lots of museums, which I see why it's a city of culture. I mean, if that's your thing, you'll be in heaven, and they're free.
Yeah, that was the cool part, them being free. What were your favorite sites in Glasgow, though?
The University of Glasgow, for sure, was the top one for me. I remember we went there and explored, ate our packed lunch. And I was just thinking about how different it was from the University of Calgary. Just so old. It was like, oh my God, I could have come here and it would have been like I was going to Hogwarts.
Yeah, no, that's kind of the vibe I got there too. It's a very castle-y university, which is really cool.
Yeah.
Although I was wondering like what there would be like in terms of plugs and like the internal stuff that maybe isn't as cool because the building's old.
The U of C's from the 60s and they barely have enough plugs.
The thing that it seems like I think they built that in the 1800s.
Yeah.
But it ages so much better. It's built in stone. It looks like so sturdy, beautiful. Strong, like old. And then you go to U of Calgary and the old buildings are from like the 60s and they're like kind of look like bunk and run down.
They're so ugly.
Yeah. It's like people don't build things that last very well anymore.
Yeah. Two other places that we stopped that I liked. The botanical gardens were really nice. We actually had a bit of sunshine for those. And then Burn Road. Yeah,
the weather really impacts your view of a city a lot, I think.
For sure.
We got to the botanical gardens and it was sunny out. Like I really feel like when I think about that memory versus the memory of being down near our hostel while it's raining, like I think is that even the same city?
Mm-hmm. But it is. But yeah, no, it's not. I know what you mean. It's so different. It's like a different world. Like Glasgow, like started smiling for us instead of crying all over us.
But I think that Burn Road area, the area around the university, is the place I would want to stay if I went back.
For sure. And we actually went to Lebowski's there, so you could get a White Russian. Yeah,
so there's this chain of bars, I guess. There's one in Edinburgh and one in Glasgow. We've seen it in Edinburgh, but didn't get a chance to go. So someone who's created a bar off of the Big Lebowski movie, and then they've got somewhere in 20 to 30 different types of White Russians.
Yeah, Ryan was.
So I was pretty stoked on that.
Taking photos, sending them back to friends at home.
Yeah, it was so cool.
Yeah, it was cool. One other thing I really liked in Glasgow was we went to the Glasgow Cathedral, and that was another cathedral. But we went to the Necropolis, which is the graveyard at the hill, and that was easily to this day the coolest graveyard I've ever been to.
It was better than Recoleta in Buenos Aires.
For sure. You don't agree?
Yeah, I think I enjoyed it more. And it was very suiting of the weather. It was like a very gloomy place, which suited the very gloomy weather. But it had cool like crypts and other weird.
They were massive.
Yeah.
They were so big and they had the coolest like statues for tombs and like small houses. And it was just rows and rows of graves. Like I think we must have walked around there for an hour and there's no way we saw it all.
No, yeah, and you can some very impressive headstones and tomb or crypts or whatever.
Yeah.
It kind of had this haunting feeling to it too.
Oh, for sure. I mean, it's a giant graveyard.
It's like misty and rainy, and it's like, oh, there's going to be a zombie around.
It's the start of a horror movie.
Yeah, no, that's what it felt like. It's the start of a horror movie.
Yeah. So the other thing we did in Glasgow was we went up to the Scottish Highlands. So we did a tour of Loch Lomond, Glencoe, Fort William, and Loch Ness.
Yeah. What were your thoughts from the tour?
I liked it. I would have liked to spend more time in the Highlands actually because they were beautiful. Mm-hmm. One thing to point out or to, I guess, fun fact is that loch means lake in Scottish.
Yeah.
So Loch Lomond is Lake Lomond. I guess Loch Lomond rains almost every day of the year and we happened to get a sunny day. So that was really enjoyable.
Yeah, I really liked getting out of Glasgow and seeing the Highlands.
For sure. It's something I've really come to appreciate through our travels. Like the cities are nice. It's nice to see stuff, but I love countrysides and landscapes and geography and just exploring the nature.
Yeah. And it seems like that's where you encounter more unique stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's nice to duck yourself into a city every once in a while and then maybe go get some stuff that you're missing out on, like good restaurants, maybe go to a mall or whatever. But I really enjoy being in the calmer, more rural areas. And especially there, I had been feeling kind of this like anxiety and tension in Glasgow that seemed to be relieved by getting out. And one thing that really struck me was how big the mountains are in Scotland.
Yeah.
They were like the real deal mountains, which I wasn't expecting.
No, me either. Like Glencoe, I think Glen means valley. I'm pretty sure. So Glencoe, we were in a valley and it was so lush, so green because it rained so much there. And
it was green and then really rocky at the tops.
Yeah, green and rocky.
It was like desolate.
Really big, mountains. We learned all about the history there and the battles that happened there, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, the history of Scotland is really interesting and it's something I didn't know about. Did you? No,
I didn't. I mean, because I'd been to London before and I did like Jack the Ripper stuff and whatnot, which is also very kitschy. I knew about, London's kind of grueling background. I don't know if that's the right word.
I don't think so.
Gloomy background.
Yeah, but
I didn't know about Scotland though. Like Scotland's been in wars with Ireland and England and it's pretty nasty, the history.
Yeah, I feel like since we grow up in kind of like the Queen's still the monarch of Canada, maybe that is the reason we whitewash a bit of the atrocious things that England has been responsible for. Mm-hmm. But that was kind of where in Scotland we're learning about that. I'd seen Braveheart, but a long time before. So you learn about the wars and then we went to Ireland and you learn even more about the things that...
gruesome. That's the word I was looking for. Gruesome, not grueling.
Yeah.
Heading on to Loch Ness. I was super stoked to see Loch Ness just because of the Loch Ness monster fairy tales. It's also cool because Loch Ness is the biggest loch or lake in Scotland at 24 miles long and has more water than all the other lochs combined.
Wow.
Very cool.
That's a lot of water.
And we looked for Nessie, right? We looked for her.
Didn't find her. Didn't look especially hard.
I think Nessie's a she.
Did you?
Yeah, I think it's a female.
Well, we found the big purple statue they have there.
Yeah, took some photos in front of that.
Do you believe in the Loch Ness Monster?
I mean, it's kind of the same sort of concept of like with Lake Okanagan. I mean, I think there's maybe like a big fish in there. Do I think there's like a dragon thing living in there? Probably not. Yeah. I mean, why has nobody seen it?
Yeah, it's kind of interesting how, if anyone who's listening isn't from Canada or from Western Canada specifically, they have a similar legend in Lake Okanagan of a beast called Ogopogo, which is essentially the Canadian Loch Ness Monster.
Yeah, and I don't know, every time I see like a big ripple, I'm like, oh, Ogopogo. Yeah. I mean, I joke about those things and I was like, oh, going on a search for Nessie. Yeah. But do I really believe in that? I mean, there's probably some big fish in there that maybe back in the day they were like, oh my God, it's a monster. But do I think that there's actually like a dragon thing living in there?
Definitely not.
I mean, it's not Game of Thrones. Let's be real.
No, yeah. There was probably just some really big fish. I think that's something that happens when you have a really big lake. Like maybe there's a possibility that there's really big fish that people don't really encounter because they're so deep in the lake.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and Loch Ness is quite a deep lake, so same with Lake Okanagan. Are you sort of on the same page with that? You're not big into the mythical creatures, are you?
No, I just think there's probably some big fish in there that people occasionally have experiences with.
Yeah, I mean, I'm open to it. Somebody like showed me a real photo, I'd be like, okay, maybe. But no, I think it's a big fish for now. So that was pretty much what we did in Scotland. My overall impressions of the country were that it was very beautiful. A lot of history behind it I had no idea about, as we just discussed. What about you?
I really liked Edinburgh. I'd love to go back there. Glasgow, I don't know.
I think
it's not anything I'd if I was going back to Scotland, what I would like to do would be go to Edinburgh again for sure, and then kind of get out into the Highlands, some more rural areas, drive around and experience that. And I think for me, I liked the Scottish Highlands better than, well, we didn't really get out into the English countryside, so I can't say I liked it better. But if I was going back to the UK, that's where I'd want to go. Yeah,
for sure. I think that's fair. So from Glasgow, we took a train to Stranraer.
That's probably not pronounced right.
And then took the ferry over to Belfast in Northern Ireland. And we are actually able to book it online. So that was super simple. Lots of people ask, how do you book transportation? That's a very stressful thing. I mean, hostels will always help you out. They always have that information. So always ask. Don't be shy.
Yeah.
But you can find that stuff online, especially in the UK and Europe. It's pretty simple. One thing that was not simple though was this finding our train seats. And because my backpack was so heavy when we did find them, I couldn't get my bag up above my seat, and we always had a little bit of train stress when we first got on.
Yeah, we were still getting used to the training around Europe thing. So we had bought Eurorail passes, but those don't kick in until you get to Ireland.
Yeah.
So we had just paid for trains, and so you have seats, but you get on the train and you have to find your seats, and
the seats are the same in all the different lettered cars, aren't they? Don't they have like A through D and then all the same numbered seats? So if you get on like B and then sit in 12, but you're actually in C, it's like somebody comes and kicks you out. And it's like just as you've settled, like pulled your iPod out and your journal and like your bag is up, and it's like, I have to move now. This is stressful.
Yeah. And that's one thing when you're traveling with someone, you get into these stressful situations. Those were a problem for us sometimes, where we'd get stressed and then you begin to take the stress out on the people you're with. We'd also have stuff happen like that with finding food, where we're both hungry and stressed or hangry. That's one thing you need to watch out for when you're traveling.
Yeah, make sure if you're traveling with somebody that
you've got food.
Yeah, keep snacks on you, especially if you're traveling with me. I get hangry real quick.
Yeah.
So does Ryan. So, but I think that's all for now. Do you have anything else that you want to add before we close off this podcast?
No, not really. But just, next time we're in Ireland.
Yeah. So. And, check out our show notes on our blog, www.theworldwanders.com. If you want to read more about our travels, check out my website, www.amandakingsmith.com.
And there was one thing I was going to add. On our tour of the Highlands, we encountered a bagpiper of renowned horribleness.
Perhaps we'll pull up a video of that. So put it on our show notes if we can find it.
No, yeah, I have it. I'll put it on the show notes.
Okay. Check it out if you feel like listening to some bad bagpiping.
Yeah, for sure. Okay. Until next time.
Ciao.